Okay. Hopefully that's all working. All right. Sort this out. Okay, I think I'm good to go. Okay.
That makes sense to them. And
I don't know.
But you know what? I'm earth-shattering experiences that are in complete contradiction. That it's like that probably means that God's not personal. It's like it makes
Or
more
maybe God is personal, and that God is just great.
Learn about myself, and as I read those journal entries to you and like my internal dialogue, I think you're seeing, as I am appreciating that, like I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I don't interact in a healthy way at this point in my life with a robust belief system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you ended up saying you applied the label of like hopeful agnostic to where you were right now, and I mean, if I were to label myself, I think I would say I'm an agnostic who wants to be hopeful. I think I have made it.
I'm an agnostic who wants to be hopeful. I'm an agnostic who wants to be hopeful. This goes after this. Okay. I'm an agnostic who wants to be hopeful. I don't even know what that means. How does that differ from agnosticism? I don't think it does.
Decision to be open. I do want that. I don't want to be, I just, I don't want to be an atheist. So I'm hopeful that I can be hopeful. But I know that it kind of.
Why don't you want to be an atheist?
I'm hopeful that I can be hopeful. So he wants to be able to have faith in something.
Because I'm not convinced that God doesn't exist, and I don't want to, if God does exist, I want to be open to that connection.
God does exist. I want to be open to that connection. So if God does exist, I want to be open to that connection. God does exist. So I think he's not open to the conditions of the connection rather than the reality of the existence. Maybe. I might have to rework that one.
That's just not, it's not how I think, like to come down hard on something but I think that left to my own devices, from a practical standpoint, I would end up as like a practical atheist where it's like, you know what? I do feel like it's easiest for me to believe that when you die, it's just like Dana Carvey, my my Wayne's World doppelganger. I'm replacing the Bible with Garth and Bonnie Raitt, it seems.
Right.
I remember years ago when I was listening to the WTF podcast, Dana Carvey was talking about how he believed that, like, when you die, it's just like the experience you had before you were born. You remember that? So I'm like, yeah, that's actually comforting. And I find it easy to believe that for some reason. It's not, I'm not compelled to believe it, but it's just an easy place for my mind.
Just because something is easy to believe does not at all speak to its validity. I think I actually wrote this already. No, I didn't. Anyway. Just because something is easy to believe does not at all speak to its validity. Oh, good. I can see your chat. I don't need to have it on the other window. I can see your chat come up on this side. That's good. I have to sign in to chat back, even though I'm already signed in. What the heck? And now it just popped out the chat in another window. Sure, whatever. I'll have two chats up. What were these emojis, man? What the heck? How do I use any of this? AH. Is that Azar? Azar Hussein? You default emoji. Yeah. Okay. I need to work out how to I need to work out how to do this layout, because my Twitch layout was a little more responsive than this. This is not very responsive, but it's way more convenient. Doxed rip. Yeah, true. Absolutely doxed. I just said your IP as well. Well, good to know everything is like working at the very least. Anyway, I'll work out more of this. I think I need to change some layouts. This is not the best layout. I can just immediately add you guys as like mods and everything though, which is good. It's so much quicker than Twitch's system. Yeah.
Find a rest.
Well, and you don't have to believe it. I think the reason I'm not an atheist is because it just feels too definitive.
Right.
Agnostic is the label that literally means you don't know, and I hope I'm always, when it comes to these issues, I hope I'm always. I don't want to become dogmatic about anything.
Yeah, but
Oh, I have covered a little bit of this. Yeah, here we go. I don't want to become dogmatic. If God exists, I want to be open to that connection. And I think wrote that exactly. Hold on. Both claim agnosticism. Does this therefore require an obligation to find out? Oh, yep. I remember what I was writing now. I don't want to become dogmatic about anything. This is, again, a huge irony. Because the reason why he left the faith was to seek more answers. But then in the process has become someone who doesn't want to be sure or dogmatic about anything. Anyway. Oh. My volume is soft, is it? True. I wonder why that is. What if I just like bring the microphone closer? I can probably up it on this end, but I think that'll mess with like my settings on everything else. I think I'll just have to keep the microphone closer to my face.
I don't want to become complacent either, because I do think that it's easiest for me to believe that everybody believes whatever they want to believe, like your innermost desires. Maybe it could be something primal like survival and security, and there's so many different things, but like we have a way of finding what works.
I think I have the right Yeti settings on. I'm pretty sure these are the Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got it to the. Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, you're right. I didn't have it on the like conical one. That should be better. I think I changed it back when we were talking to Vanos because I wanted to split the audio either side so he could hear us better. Yeah, okay. Otherwise I'll play this stream back later and work out what sort of settings I need. I might need to change the individual stream settings a little bit. For now, I'll just project.
Works for us, and I think that's instinctive. So just to put it bluntly, you believe what you want to believe. You know, it's like, I find it easy to believe that. I find it easy to believe that because so many people have had so many earth-shattering experiences that are in complete contradiction, that it's like, that probably means that God's not personal.
Man, what a statement. It feels like those two ideas are just totally not at all the same thing. Hold on, I need to go back.
Because I do think that it's easiest for me to believe that everybody believes whatever they want to believe. Like,
so everyone believes what they want to believe. Everyone believes what they want to believe, right? Is this the starting point, I think. Turn it up a little bit.
Your innermost desires, maybe that's, I mean, it could be something primal like survival
and then it's like everyone believes what they want to believe because people have different experiences or not different, clashing experiences and ideals. And what else? What other words do you use?
Security, and it could, I mean, there's so many different things, but like, we have a way of finding what works for us. And I think that's instinctive. So just to put it bluntly, you believe what you want to believe. You know, it's like, I find it easy to believe that. I find it easy to believe that because.
Sounds like he's just saying the pursuit of religious knowledge is pointless. Yeah, I think he's saying that, and then I think he's using that as a reason to say that God's not personal, because it's like, God can't... I don't even know. I feel like his own point actually proves that God is personal, because people are getting different revelations.
Because so many people have had so many earth-shattering experiences that are in complete contradiction.
Yeah, contradiction is the word that he uses. More people use it for their own personal gains. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, I see. Contradicting experiences and ideals and so on. Man, this is such a like strange. Yeah, it's such a strange statement to make heads or tails of. This has been my experience watching the entirety of Rhett and Link's videos. Is like, I'm just sitting here like baffled, like asking myself the question: what are you saying right now? What are you trying to say?
Earth-shattering experiences that are in complete contradiction, that it's like, that probably means that God's not personal. You know, it's like, it makes
or
more
maybe God is personal, and that God is just great at relating very specifically to a lot of different people in a very personal way that makes sense to them.
And you know
I
what?
don't know.
But you know what? I'm open to that.
I feel like that was a much better rephrasing of what I feel like Rhett actually already is like correcting Link quite heavily on that. Because I don't think Link's statement makes any sense based on what his complaint is.
That would be a very loving.
Isn't God capable of doing that?
Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to invent a new belief system of like, this is what I believe specifically. I just want to do the work to stay open.
Yeah, he kind of got fully corrected by Rhett, right? Like, didn't he just kind of have his whole ideal blown out of the water just by his own friend? Anyway.
But not to get, like you said, dogmatic. And I know that takes work. It takes an investment of time and priority for me to not just sit back and just kind of just go with the flow of like, I'm not looking, again, it's not looking for the next thing to latch onto and believe and start to follow, but it's being open to what,
Yeah.
how God may exist and may want to connect with me. I think the main thing is
what was that?
how God may, but it's being open to what, how God may exist and may want to connect with me.
That's the whole point of Christianity. I think you just worked it out. I don't even know what to write down. It's like I feel like he's unintentionally accidentally discovering real Christianity rather than what he was complaining Christianity was. Man, I feel like I just need to quote that in the podcast. Just quote that.
And start to follow, but it's being open to what with the flow of like, and just kind of just go with the flow of like, I'm not looking, again, it's not looking for the next thing to latch onto and believe and start to follow, but it's being open to what, how God may exist and may want to.
Not looking for the next thing to latch onto and follow. I'm guessing he's talking about this in like a blind faith sense. But rather to work out what that connection looks like.
Looking for the next thing to latch onto and believe and start to follow, but it's being open to what?
Being open to what that connection might look like.
How God may exist and may.
Yeah. Being open to how God may exist.
May want to connect.
And may want to connect
With me.
Accidentally discovered real Christianity. I don't know what to say here.
I think the main thing is I don't want to judge. I don't want to condemn. I want to be as loving as I can. Maybe that sounds.
I want to be as loving as I can. Man, this just writes itself. It really does. I'm not laughing at Link. I'm just laughing at like the irony of all of this. I want to be as loving as I can. Cool. Cool. What does being as loving as you can look like? Do you have some sort of frame of reference? Mayhaps a living example?
Sounds trite. It does, but so what? I want to be as loving as I can. And, I do feel like over the past few years, my capacity to love has grown. My capacity to love myself.
Okay, this is an important point. My capacity for love. He's tunneling down the. Absolutely, he's just rolling, picking up all of the breadcrumbs. He's heading straight for the loaf. My capacity for love has increased. Okay, good. This is actually a really good point. Because it seems like Link was like a really he was living like a really kind of classic American parroted faith, where he was just like an evangelical who was just like told what to think and was telling other people what to think. Um, and he was loving God because he was told to love God, and that loving God makes sense, and that therefore how we love God and experience love from God plays into our ability to how we love people and experience love with other people. Um, so the fact that he's like abandoned that clinical, told how to love idea rather than doing what he said before, which is being open to how God may exist and how he may want to connect with me, has now increased his capacity for love. So it's a good point, and once again, Link has like accidentally discovered like Christianity. My capacity for love has increased because he has remapped his idea of what love is. Not just a parroted, not just a parroted concept he learned from evangelical teachings or something. Yeah, okay, cool.
And others has expanded a lot more in the last few years.
Let's be faithful to this. Not increased, he said expanded.
I take that as a good sign. I just don't think that God, if God exists or however God exists, I just can't believe that, that
I maybe am gonna try and pre-watch the VOD here. He's gonna start talking about like the killing of people in the Bible or the burning. It's gonna be one of these. It'll be like all the killing of people in the Bible, or it's gonna be like burning in hell. It'll be one of those.
Me being open and sincere and as loving as possible
means I have to burn in hell.
And as honest as possible is disqualifying me from receiving
heaven,
God's love.
Oh, close enough. I think once again he's made like a statement. I don't think he realizes that it makes no sense.
As loving as possible,
me being as loving as
and
possible,
as honest as possible, is disqualifying me from
receiving God's love. That's not at all in the Bible or a theme that exists ever. Me being as loving as possible or as honest as possible is disqualifying me from receiving God's love. That just isn't true. I don't know where he got this idea from, but neither of those things disqualify him from receiving God's love. I'm pretty sure the Bible is extremely explicit about what disqualifies you from even potentially not receiving, yeah, I don't know where this idea has come from. Where has this idea even come from? I have to think where would this come from? From what he said. It must be based on it must be based on what he's witnessed. There's a common theme in like very strict evangelical conservative churches that God is like this landlord that comes to check in on you and make sure you're not sinning. And like making sure that you're upholding his ideas or something like that. So I think his idea of God's love is just fundamentally wrong. His idea of God's is fundamentally incorrect.
Receiving God's love. I can't accept that. And so I have hope that that's true, because I cannot just decide to be or believe something that I don't. And I'm just.
That's not going to stop a lot of people on the internet from trying to convince you, though.
Yeah, and I feel like because a lot of
God, Rhett's voice is so like sweet and tantalizing. It's just like the smoothest voice
I'm
ever.
just.
That's not going to stop a lot of people on the internet from trying to convince you, though.
I could listen to like if he made like one of those sleep podcasts and just talked in that voice. Not because it's like a monotonous, boring voice, but I think it's just like super calm and relaxing and just like lovely to listen to him say anything. You should get him making a audiobook of the Bible.
Yeah, and I feel like because a lot of what I said could be boiled down to some neurosis. You know, it's like
down to neurosis. Surely that was a joke, right? I'm gonna assume it's a joke. Stop simping? No, I'll never stop simping.
Yeah, and I feel like because a lot of what I said could be boiled down to some neurosis. You know, it's like, but the intellectual path. I mean, it's the two things. I think the one made me receptive to the other, and I just think it's got to be so. And that's truth. I just don't know how.
Wasn't that just the most like? I feel like I'm looking at. Or I'm like listening to like an audio version of like a. What's that meme? Uh. It's like this. I feel like I'm listening to this. Hold on. Have the exact I feel like I'm listening to this right now. You know? That's what I feel like I'm listening to. He's like trying really hard to like make sense of all of these like insane ideas that are floating through his head. Which I actually fault. I'm gonna write this down. I actually fault him on any of this. It just makes you think after listening to Rhett's deconstruction and listening to this deconstruction, it seems like they've had absolutely like no one reliable to take all of what they're hearing and make sense of it and sent back at them as like a, you know, to help them like filter and process all of this. That, or they just have no idea. Maybe they did have someone really reliable, but they just didn't want to, like... They could have just denied it or not want to hear it or whatever. But yeah, it just sounds like a classic, like... It almost sounds like someone's wrestling with Christianity for the first time, not someone who's been a Christian for, like, 2 decades.
People will respond to what I just said, though, when I'm like, I want to be open. I don't know. I'm an agnostic. I just want to focus on love.
It genuinely seems like he's thinking about this for the first time, right? Like he's now just realized what he said before, and he's got like a new thought on it. He's actually in real time thinking about some new ideas for the first time. So it's got to be either this, or they just outright like didn't hear someone who was reliable. Yeah, I'll go to new page.
And then I'm like, but the reason I got here is because of what I was convinced that was no longer true.
Well, I can tell you how I would have reacted to it when I was a Christian.
What was that sentence?
And then I'm like, but the reason I got here is because to what I just said, though. I just don't know how people will respond to what I just said, though, when I'm like, I want to be open. I don't know. I'm an agnostic. I just want to focus on love. And then I'm like, but the reason I got here is because of what I was convinced that was no longer true.
Yeah, you've asked yourself a great question, Link. I don't know how people will react to that either, because I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. Man, it'd be so interesting to see someone like sit with them over a long period of time and actually break this down.
Well, I can tell you how I would have reacted to it when I was a Christian, and I would have been sad for you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the wrong response. I would have been sad for you. Well, it's sad that someone doesn't believe, but I know the sadness he's talking about. It's like a lost sadness. It's not a sadness of like, oh, I wish my friend, believe what I believe because I have something that I want them to experience and I believe that it's truth and I believe that this truth carries, whatever. There's just like this hopelessness of like he's lost, he's gone from the faith. And the fact that Rhett said that is really important because it shows there's no plan. Let me think for a second. It's almost like there's no plan for how do I approach it. It's like the emotion comes first and not the first response should be compassion and willingness to walk with them and explain the faith as best as you can, according to their circumstances. This shows a very, what is it? Not like a simple faith. Maybe a simple faith. Yeah, it just shows a very like simple black and white faith. I don't think this is a very like ideal reaction. If I think about what I know about Jesus, I don't think he would have looked at Link and gone, "You make me sad." Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are sad for us, and there's a lot of people who are going to feel sorry for us, and they're going to be like, I can't, you know.
I asked a close friend, I was like, so do you think I'm going to hell? And he was like, no, I don't. I think,
Hell's talk already. Wow, that was quick.
I think what you had was real, and it still is, and you're at this, and you're in a process. He didn't say, I think you'll.
I do like that response. Because the whole problem with these deconstructions, I'm gonna write this here. I've written it in the other documents as well. I'll write it again. The whole problem with these deconstructions is that they deconstruct so much that they also deconstruct the truth with it. What do I mean by that? It's very baby with the bathwater mentality. There's no attempt to take the truthful aspects and marry them with the new revelations the person may have just experienced. Usually, it goes more like, I no longer believe X aspect of the faith, so I no longer believe in the faith in its entirety. Oopsies. I butchered that spelling, but hold on. Refresh this quickly. Yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, these ideas can all sit in one little paragraph. I no longer believe that X aspect of the faith. I no longer believe X aspect of the faith. So I no longer believe in that faith in its entirety, rather than keeping the faith and just removing that aspect. That aspect may be a core aspect of the faith, but that can still be addressed.
come back. I think maybe it's forward and on the other side, but it's like I appreciated that in one sense. I guess in the other sense, it's like I don't feel like I'm gonna go back and assent to any of the the specific beliefs about the Bible.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Here's the problem. I don't feel like I'm not gonna bother typing all that, but I don't feel like I'm gonna assent. What does he say?
In one sense, I guess in the other sense, it's like I don't feel like I'm gonna go back and assent to any of the the specific beliefs about the Bible.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I mean that's
so baby with the bathwater mentality. Like, I don't like this, so I'm not gonna go back to the entirety of the Bible.
That's where I'm at. And that's the conclusion of my story to this point, but it's obviously not the conclusion of my journey. And I'm immediately thinking about how people are responding to it, and I'm just trying not to do that.
Yeah, well.
But I want to be a conversation to happen.
Yeah, well, maybe we can help. Listen, I'm not trying to dictate how the conversation should go from here, but let me just say just a couple of thoughts that I have about the conversation that will happen as a result of these stories kind of going out.
I'll be back. Okay.
To the public. Most people, and I totally get why this is the case, are going to interact with our stories in whatever way makes sense according to their predetermined worldview.
Right.
So,
which is a problem because some people have a lot of horrible.
If you're a Christian and you're not a Christian that has had a lot of doubts, or you're just like 100% sure that you're right, you're most likely, you're gonna filter us through your theology, just like I was talking about at the beginning of my story. So you may conclude that, well, you guys were definitely never actual Christians. It was an intellectual thing that's specifically addressed in the Bible, and you know, God's gonna say he never knew you. And if that makes you, you know, I understand why you have to believe that. I don't accept that, but I can't make you change your mind. And then there's
the fact that this is his like default position on what Christians should think is pretty telling.
a lot of other situations that people may find that, but you're gonna make it consistent with your predetermined belief. The only thing I ask about, and I hope that this was clear, and Link made it, I tried to make it clear and Link tried to make it clear, that we are just kind of telling our story, trying to be as honest as possible about what transpired in our lives that kind of led us to this point. And I would love if the conversation would be, tell us your story, right? Or, you know, you don't have to, like I said, I know people are gonna send a lot of arguments, probably especially to me because I'm the one that talked about all the, you know, the specific arguments about evolution or Old Testament archaeology and that kind of thing. So people are gonna try to send resources and books. Have you heard of this? Have you read this article? And I'm not saying don't do that. Some people won't be able to help yourself, because I wouldn't have been able to help myself if I was in your shoes, you know. But I would just hope that you would just actually try to consider our stories from the point of, hey, we're just humans trying to be honest. We're your online friends trying to be honest, and just consider the story on its face. Don't just immediately
try to fix us.
Or try to make it fit into your system.
Whoops. Trying to fix them. Sorry. Oh no, I've just lost all that. Whatever. I'll just watch it like this for now.
System, because I think that the world has got so much polarization.
Literally trying to fix them. Whoopsies.
Right now, people are like, I'm right, you're wrong, that's it. And more than ever, and it's interesting, we're so much better connected to one another than we've ever been, but we're also so divided. And it's this just horrible irony. That's kind of the nature of the information age. And I just don't want that kind of conversation to happen in our community where people are throwing rocks at each other and, insulting one another and calling, listen, there's going to be people from both ends of the spectrum who are going to get engaged in this conversation. Please see people's humanity, see our humanity, and don't just resort to just putting your feet into your trench and just holding your position. Consider.
I'll look at the comments soon and
consider somebody's viewpoint.
See if that held.
I also wonder if people's takeaway is, like, dang, Link, if it wasn't for Rhett, you might be in a better place. It's like, man, he really brought you down. It's absolutely true that, and that I wouldn't have been grappling with these issues. I probably wouldn't have been grappling with issues. I probably wouldn't have done it, because as hard time as I was having, I still didn't want, it was still ultimately so very safe for me, and I really need that. But I'm very grateful that your personality is different than mine in that way, that it was my active choice at every turn to actively engage in the discussion. And I didn't, we shared so much of our lives, and our spiritual journey was so similar that we had the exact same language and so many of the same experiences. We went on all the same church trips, and we were partied all the same prayer groups. And, so whenever I really benefited and kind of I hacked the system in a lot of ways, I feel like, yes, I trusted you, but it was almost like trusting, your response to it was very trustworthy as my own response, because our journeys were so in lockstep. And then there was pivotal points all along the way when I would have to pick up those books and read them. It wasn't just the Francis Collins one, because it started to get real. And it was like, I got to read this stuff for myself. That'll transition to I'll let you respond to that, because I think that people might say it's your fault.
It is. No, I'm very conscious of that. I think that, interestingly, the other way around, like in any testimony that you give, that you hear somebody give in the church, it usually comes down to a person who shared the gospel with them, right? Like people share the message. And for better or worse, it also works the other way. It's like, I'm a key figure in your anti-testimony. It's a fact. It's
anti-testimony.
And I think that, people will be upset about that. People will be mad at me. I don't doubt that. But
I'm letting you off the hook, because again, I'm grateful for it, and I'm fully responsible for it. Did it make the conversations that I had with Christy even more difficult? Yes, because I was presenting these beliefs that were a threat to her. They were genuine questions to me, but they were also tied to you, like whispering into my ear, And so we had to work through that as well. It's like, well, is this something that you're grappling with, or something that Rhett is grappling with? Ultimately, it's
Man, all of this just reinforces the fact that I think, like, Americanized Christianity must actually be maybe one of the most dangerous ways to communicate the faith, and it is so prevalent.
Something that I'm grateful that legitimate questions are things that I actually wrestled with. I think I need, and that goes back to my intention of working to be hopeful, because I feel like it does take work for me to engage in those questions, the difficult questions, in order to become more of who I actually want to be.
Yeah, all the decisions were yours. All I did was just present information as I was processing it. And at no point was I trying to convince you of anything. And at no point was I trying to, like,
I was the only person you could talk to who would listen.
I was confiding in you. Yeah, I was confiding in you.
And I think that I did not want to, in my session here, I didn't want to retread the reasons that you gave, the arguments that were compelling for you. That was because you gave some of those, and you gave resources. But I also didn't want to do it because I didn't want to share a story that was, whenever my beliefs started to pivot, I described those in like a timeline fashion, but I intentionally didn't describe, well, what is it that made you believe that Jesus didn't raise from the dead? What is it that made you believe that you couldn't, that you saw Paul differently, or, all of the arguments, I didn't make them because I feel like as a listener, it's up to them, it's up to you to look into that if you want to. But I also feel like I was giving you an out if, like, hey, this is working for me, like our friend said. It was like, if this is working for you, then I don't want to be the one to screw it up for you, like Red did for me. But I do invite you, and I'll make a rec. I found this book called Why I Believed, Reflections of a Former Missionary, written by Kenneth W. Daniels. I feel like I'm gonna read Rainbow now. I mean, this is a freaking self-published book. Ken published a book. It's very highly rated, but it's very specific. It was perfect for me because it was, Ken was like a Bible translator who like raised finance.
Why I Believed, Reflections of a Former Missionary. Story of a true Christian who believed for nearly 3 decades, having grown up in the son of an evangelical missionary parents. That's a classic. Yet he slowly lost his faith and now no longer holds it. His journey, secular humanist. Apostles who desire to follow evidence wherever it leads. Dark woods in my life. Fearfully seeking, not sure if I'd actually find. I found this to be an honest, vulnerable book. As devastating in its kind. Gentle tone. Unlike the shrill atheists who seem to hear a lot of these days, trying to turn off atheism. Daniel speaks understandingly of how pervasive faith is. Away from it. It's honest about the longings. As I read this book, respected and supported by him as I progress through my own deconversion. Language he uses and scripture he quotes give him real credibility with believers who must, if they are honest, connect on some level with his doubts. Sounds like a well-written book, but nobody's talking about like. Nobody's really saying that like this is an extremely convincing book based on the points that are made. I'm still a Christian. At the end of the book, I spend my time trying to pick apart. Focusing on attacking the fundamentalist side of Christianity. Yeah. So it makes sense. This is his background. I found it interesting. He helps his case against fundamentalist Christianity. He quotes evangelical Christians. Yep. Excised, such as. Yeah, I feel like this is more what I was looking for. He also shares a story. Apparent healing woman was skeptical of it, did not talk to her after in the margin. Why didn't you just call her and ask about it? Yeah, I feel like this is the sort of review that I want to pay attention to, because it's like it's all well and good if the book is like wonderfully written, but I think more Christians should, if our faith is true, if God is really there and loves us, what do we have to fear? Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And that's the exact first thought that I had when I saw him recommend a book like this.
It's just like we did.
Is like, it's probably just a really well-written book, but I want to know like what the points are, not how poetic it is.
But he's such a thorough thinker. He's kind of like the two of us combined, because
this is the guy that I want to be.
He talked
in terms of how well he researched.
He talked in equal parts about his own experience of deconstruction, and like he's quoting his own journal entries in here, so you really understand what's going on in his heart as well as his mind. And so if you relate to the specifics of coming out of evangelicalism, especially if you were in the ministry or if you are in the ministry, and you want to
get more detail in the book, though I can't just.
You want to read something that has a more personal touch.
And based on a comment.
This is a profound book for me. So Ken, thank you for publishing this book. But again, if you don't want to get into it, don't read it. Don't read it just so you can dismiss it. Don't read anything just to dismiss it. Just don't even read it if that's what you're going to do. But again, you gave resources last time, and that's another one to add to the list
well,
this time.
And I appreciate your story because I mean, my guess is that more people relate to your story than mine. In my experience when I talk about the things that happen with me. Again, like I said, a lot of people just are like, you're crazy. Like, why do you think about these things?
Or at least, well, he lost me.
Yeah, and
so it's like I meant a lot to him, but like I don't think it matters that much, really.
And I think yours was very personal, and it was about what you were kind of experiencing on a practical level, which I think more people relate to. I would just say again, as we begin to have a conversation. Listen, the next podcast is not. We don't know what it's going to be about, but we're going to take a break from this subject matter. But like I think that this stuff, the spiritual stuff, is now a part of Ear Biscuits. It will be something that we talk about, whether we talk about our past. I mean, we want to answer more questions. I know that there's lots of questions that people have related to these stories. I can only imagine. So ask those questions. We'll try to be as clarifying as we can. And if you make us think about something in a different way, we'll let you know. I mean, we want this to be a process. We want this to be a conversation. But we're going to let those questions be generated, and then we'll continue that conversation at another time.
Yeah. So hashtag Ear Biscuits, and also again, I'll encourage you to share these episodes with people that it would resonate with, or spark more conversations between you and your friends. So share it. We'll speak at you next week, probably about something else. And then we'll see if we most likely will come back to it. Thank you.
Cool. What are the comments like? Yeah, I did make note of this. Yeah, there's not a lot of meat in the comments. That's all right. Okay, let's have a look at the summary. I'll need to go back and address all of these notes again. But okay, so zoom in a bit. Began with a story about how he got drunk and felt extremely guilty. Rhett didn't seem happy about it at the time either. Followed up with his diary entries, talking about how he was just apologizing and sorry all the time for not being good enough and sinning. Yeah, this shows a very uninformed idea of Jesus. So to begin with, there's just this theme of like a lack of information. You can accept both of those things. Right, in reference to evolution, Adam and Eve. Oh yeah, this was confusing. This didn't make. Yeah. So Brett was saying that evolution and Adam and Eve are like starkly against each other, but my point is you could probably accept both of those things existing. Probably find a way to have both of those ideas exist in the Christian thought process. The stuff in the Old Testament can't be literal. Unfortunately, did not say how. You worship a god that did frightening things. Did not explain how. Couldn't get into worship. It was like there was a brick wall there in terms of feeling the spirit or anything like it. Yeah. Worship is kind of like exercise. If you try to lift 200 kilograms right out the gates, you'll also get nowhere. I'll expand on that later. Problems had much simpler explanations, like death and disaster. I'm guessing this is if you're not a Christian. Which isn't really true. Death and disaster. Oh, actually, no. Sorry, it is true. It's true in the case that they do have simpler explanations. But simple isn't necessarily, yeah. Simple isn't always correct. This is a key theme as well. Just because they understand more now that they aren't Christian doesn't mean what they understand entirely encapsulates truth better than the more complicated Christian view. Discrimination troubled him. It troubles Jesus too. Hence the whole sitting with the sinners and the tax collectors arc. Link heard someone say something like, I don't want to hear what you've learned because I think you'd probably convince me. Oh, yeah, yep. Yeah, it doesn't show the validity of the argument. It shows a lack of foundation of the listeners. This is a really common theme as well. This is like, yeah, there's a serious lack of information. I need to put this as like a main point of all of this. There's just a serious lack of like information and good conversation being had here. Oh, actually, I'll space this out. Yeah. People sought revelation and got nothing, or got opposing revelations to someone else. Yeah. Issue of testing the spirits, an issue of divine hiddenness. I need to put some information in here about that. Issue of testing of spirits. So the Bible says to test all spirits. Because not all of them are good or from God. So usually, like best practice would be to involve multiple people / parties in a let's call it a spiritual event or prophecy. So the correct answer is filtered through multiple people or multiple appeals to God. Not just simply one person taking liberties with it all. And the issue of divine hiddenness. God has a way that he wants to relate to us. This involves patience and a whole host of things written in Scripture. banging your head against someone's front door won't get them to suddenly let you in. But because God is gracious, he might do that as well. Actually, I'm going to leave that comment out. It's too open-ended. Yeah, I'll expand on this idea more, I think. Seems like Link and Rhett view Christianity as a belief system rather than a relationship and a pursuit of the kingdom. This is a very important problem. I will space that out, actually. Constantly using language like system and similar terminology. Both claim agnosticism. Let's split this apart. Yeah, we'll leave that all in there. So, the problem with this, is that this makes the faith seem like a job or a role or a box ticking process rather than something you live in and embody. What's a good example of this? I feel like marriage is a good example. You don't tell your partner you love them out of obligation for the commitment that is marriage. You marry them because you love them, and telling them that comes naturally. That's probably the problematic distinction there. Both claim agnosticism. Does this therefore require an obligation to find out who or what God is? Oh, that's the question that I pose to myself. I'll expand the question. Does believing in God but not working out who or what he is count as ignorance? I'll have to work on that one. That's gotta highlight that. I gotta work on that one. Separate that. I'm an agnostic who wants to be hopeful. How does this differ from agnosticism? So he wants to be able to have faith in something. I think that's what he's saying. He wants to be able to have faith in something. My question then becomes, why doesn't he seek that then? Why doesn't he seek faith and not seek to marry faith with his new ideas of the world? I think doing this would look like this. God does exist. I want to be open to that connection. God does exist. So I think he's not open to the connection. the conditions of that connection rather than the reality of existence. Oopsies. I probably need to caveat that. He's not open to the conditions of the connection based on what he was originally told to think about Jesus. Brett, I don't want to become dogmatic about anything, which is ironic. Just because something is easy to believe does not at all speak to its validity. I said it again. Everyone believes what they want to believe. Contradicting, which leads to, let's add some context. Leads to contradicting experiences, ideals, and so on. Which therefore means we'll put a note in that Rhett corrected this a bit. But I think this leads back to like this. So maybe I should like color code this. Maybe that'll work if I color code this and then match it all up. Not looking for the next thing to latch onto and follow. Blind faith sense. Why did I write that? Not looking for the next thing to latch on and follow. Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Blind faith understanding of Christianity. Which is what he has. Being open to how God may exist and may want to connect with me. Accidentally discovered real Christianity. Yep. Want to be as loving as I can. Cool. What does being as loving as you can look like? Do you have some sort of frame of reference? Mayhaps a living example? True. I'm hilarious. My capacity for love has expanded because he's remapped his idea of what love is, not just a parroted concept. Yep. Me being as loving as possible or as honest as possible is disqualifying me from receiving God's love. Where does this idea even come from? Must be based on what he's witnessed, and his old teachings and so on. Common theme: God is like a landlord that comes to check in on you and make sure you're not sinning, and make sure you're upholding his ideas. His idea of God's love is fundamentally incorrect. Yes. It sounds like there's been no one reliable in their life to help them process this. Let's put that together. Or they just outright didn't hear someone who was reliable. I would have been sad for you. Yep, shows no plan. Cool. Yeah, okay. I'm pretty happy with that summary. So the next thing is to then go back and maybe color code all of this into similar ideas, and then, but this, it's nice to have it in chronological order. I'll have to think about it. I'll come back to it. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to do, because that's it now. That's all of Link's deconstruct, well, the first episode. Wow, that was an hour and a half already. That was quick. If I were to do the whole video, because that was maybe the last third of the video, or the last quarter of the video. That's like a full length stream if I do an entire video. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll just do that. Go through a whole video at a time. Relentlessly. Alright, sounds good. I'll stop the stream here for now, but that was a good test. Test one to work out how long it would take me to do something like this and what it would look like on stream. But it seemed like it worked okay. I'll leave this one up. I'll leave this upload just sitting there as a point of reference.